Well, hello everyone, it's your friend Cinzia, and welcome to another episode of A Page from My Book, a podcast where we flip through life's chapters together and I give some friendly and personal advice to help you navigate the pages of your own story. Today we have a question about writing and a fear of writing from an anonymous person. It goes, "Hi Cinzia, I have a huge fear of writing and it has caused me a lot of trouble in university because I haven't handed in a lot of my written assignments. Sometimes I will write an outline and then never fill out the essay in its entirety. Sometimes I will write the number of pages required and fully fleshed out arguments, then never hand it in because I don't know how to write the conclusion. Sometimes I never start the paper at all. I feel so much regret and shame because my professors and academic advisors have been so forgiving and they have given me so many opportunities to submit assignments past the end of the semester for passing the grade. But I've never lived up to my promises to finish my assignments. I feel like I've burned too many bridges at this point and I don't know if I can finish my degree on time. I think it's a combination of perfectionism, fear of judgments, intense shame, and plain lack of tenacity that has gotten me to this point. This may be too much of a mess for you to advise on, but I'd love to know how you might approach to remedy the situation." So the person wished to remain anonymous. I'm going to give the person's name Matilda, just so I have something to work off of. So Matilda has several issues here. We have a fear of writing, but what comes with that fear of writing? It comes with the fear of assessment, and Matilda's taken all the spots that we can see here that other people would advise her to do. And Matilda has done things like given herself a skeleton. So she has all the points that she's going to follow. She's not writing them out. She's even got to a point where she's finished an assignment and hasn't even handed it in. So the fear isn't always a fear of writing. It's the fear of being read and being judged here. That comes to the point. Because if you've got past a point where you have written a whole paper and not handed it in, then we know that it's the final jump. And it is really lovely that your supervisors and professors have been so supportive of this issue that you are having. And I relate a lot to it. I am having the same problem with my own PhD right now, that I am not writing out of fear. In fact, it's got to the point that I'm scared of reading. It's got that bad. So I know exactly how you are feeling. And when I did my undergraduate and my master's, I had the same fear. But what happened it's definitely, from my point of view, is perfectionism. I was scared of even writing anything on a page. So I never did a first draft. Everything I ever submitted was the first draft because nothing got even typed out until it was perfect. I couldn't backspace. I couldn't write down a sentence and delete it. I had to have it perfectly before I got it on paper. Now back then I used to do this thing where I did voice to text technician. So to get over my fear of writing, I would just say my thoughts out loud to just get something down on paper of some form. But I feel like the issues that you're having with your degree are far more intense than just the fear of writing. What the writing symbolizes is the issue here. And I'm sure many people can relate in other fields of their life. It doesn't have to be exactly in academia. Everyone has that fear of judgment and then the shame of not doing the work, and it's cyclical. And I completely get it because I'm in the same situation right now. What I can say is I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you feel that your worth on paper isn't good enough to exist. I'm sorry that you feel that you are letting everyone down around you and you're letting yourself down, and that guilt as well is getting to you. And I'm sorry that you feel like life is ticking away. Time's passing, you're not going to pass your degree, and you've done all the things that people would recommend you do. Write it down in bite-sized chunks. Do all this stuff. You've probably done the voice to text writing situation where you've just spoken it out loud. You can even record yourself. Sometimes you can record yourself on your phone or on some kind of device, just saying your thoughts out loud and then re-listening to them and typing them up in a new way. I did that as well. You're definitely right. It's a fear of perfectionism. It's a fear of judgment. It's a fear of intense shame. And also, what I've identified with myself is that the fear is that even when you've worked hard, it wasn't enough. You're so scared to even try because you think to yourself, I've gone to the brink of it. I suffered and it still wasn't good enough. And that fear of working really, really hard to the point that you are burnt out and exhausted and tired and potentially made yourself ill, dangerously ill to the point that you're hospitalized, and it still wasn't enough, makes you feel so inept. Makes you feel like there's no point trying, that I am fundamentally broken, that I am fundamentally not worth seeing. But I wish I'd listened to someone before it all happened. I wish I'd listened to this random professor the day I know that I was triggered. You see, the day I was triggered before I became an anorexic, I know the morning it happened, I just come back from Christmas holiday and we had our first ever papers given to us. And my first ever assignment, I got a 2-1. And the feedback just said, extremely poor essay. That's all the feedback it gave me. No critical feedback, no further comments, just extremely poor essay. Yet they gave me a 2-1. Now, being the person that didn't have any self-worth, being the person that relied exclusively on external validation, I couldn't see the grade, I could see the personal remark, and I broke down the corridor. I literally collapsed in the corridor of my university building crying. And a random English literature lecturer who was passing by at the time saw me and took me into his office. I don't know who this man was to this day. But he tried to calm me down. I was clearly hyperventilating. And he took me in and he read over the essay, because how they gave it to us, the feedback was, it was attached to the back of our essay. So they printed it off with written, it should have had written feedback in the margins, spelling corrections, things like that. I had none of that. And then the marking at the end. And this lecturer took his time and read through my essay, and he said to me, this isn't fair. He was like, whoever marked your paper has been incredibly harsh. It's not an incredibly poor essay. He went, they gave you the grade deserving of it. It is a 2-1 for your first ever university essay. But that wasn't fair. And then this lecturer told me, sometimes lecturers break down. Sometimes professors have a bad day. And sometimes they've gone through the system and they hate it and they hate their job and they just don't have time for it and they kind of snap. And sometimes they take that out on students. And he was like, please don't let this define your worth. And I didn't listen to him. And it ended up being 3 years of hospitalization and struggling and alienation and so much trauma. But he was right. He said the right thing to me at the very beginning, and I didn't pay attention to it because I was too focused on the external validation. I was too caught up that other people evaluated my worth, that I didn't take in the fact that they're just human. They're not divine. They're not always that clever either. The people that mark your paper at the end of the day are usually no different from a random aunt or uncle down the street. Some of them aren't even that well read. A lot of the markers out there won't have even read about the topic that you're writing about. They just have a subjective opinion on how they would like things done. They are very rarely an expert in your field. They just want to pick it apart. They don't define you. They can't judge how smart or capable you are. They can give an opinion, but their opinion isn't fact. At the end of the day, your marking will get an opinion back. That means nothing. It can be guidance. It can be guidance, but I can guarantee you that if you got, say, I doubt you'll ever get a fail, but say you got a 2-1 and you really wanted that first, or 2-2. I can guarantee you, if you took it to another academic and asked them to read your paper, they would mark it completely differently. No person has the same two opinions. Very rarely do they have the same opinions. And even then, academia is not a judgment on how smart you are, or even how hard you worked. It's how well you fit the system at that particular moment, according to some random person, likely that you'll never meet, who will never meet you, who likely has no opinions on the matter that you're writing about. They're just there to mark it. And even if they do, even if they are a lecturer who specialises in your thing, it is purely an opinion. And a prime example of this is I had 2 lecturers in the classics department. One hated the way I wrote. The other absolutely loved my writing style. And she encouraged it. The other one was like, oh, don't. You'll never get anywhere if you write like this. The other lecturer adored it. They were both incredibly high up in their departments, both of them heads of their sections. They were the people that everyone went to. At the end of the day, the marking of your essay is purely someone's opinion. It's really hard to disassociate your self-worth from your grades. I get that. I really get that. But no one is born perfect. You need to know where things go wrong. You need to know where you missed the gap. Every single academic marking you went through the same stages you went through, where they handed in a paper and someone said, you missed this, you want to fact check that, you may want to explore that more, blah, 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 X, Y, Z. And they went back and did it and filled in the gaps. And that's how they got to the place today. They listened to other people tell them where there were gaps in their work, in their writing. They listened to where the gaps were, where they can expand upon, issues that they want them to take out. And they did it, and they got to where they are today because they listened to the feedback and didn't run away from the feedback. We expect when we're young, when we first started academia, that someone's going to read our paper and go, genius in the making. Absolutely outstanding. They were made to be in this field. No one gets that. No one. I've done 3 different degrees. I've never met a single person who said, oh yes, my lecturer says I'm amazing. I'm a natural. No one is a natural at writing. No one is a natural at academia. Some people may be talented at acting or talented at singing. No one is a natural for writing how the system is built. It's manufactured. Every institution is different. Every academic within each institution is different. Styles that Oxford University expect will be different from my university. My university will have different expectations from Harvard University. In fact, here's another story. I met someone who's doing a PhD alongside me, but she went to Harvard for her undergraduate and for her master's. She handed in her first writing and her supervisor came back and went, why did you talk all about all this? And they criticised her introduction. And she was like, well, that's how we do it at Harvard. And she went, that's not how we do it here. Harvard standards got rejected at my university, not because it's superior, but that's not what's expected. Each institution is different. And each country is different, and then each opinion is different within each institution. Don't put your weight of your self-worth on the opinions of other people, on what you write on a piece of paper, because that's not what you are. Please don't hold yourself back from learning. That's what learning is. You're in the mindset of passing an exam, and that's not what assignments are. Sometimes, obviously, we have exams, but even then, it's a flawed system where you have to get it right or else you'll fail. Change the perspective at how can I become the person that I want to become in this field? How can I become just a good student? And then someone will tell you how to become that student. And that's being a good student. A good student is the one that is willing to hear where they need to change things. That's a good student. It's not how intelligent you are. It's not how many books you've got on your Goodreads account. It's not how many books you've read or how many papers you can read in a day. Not how many notebooks you've got scattered around your room. That's not what a good student is. A good student is curious. And to be a curious student, you have to hear what other people say to you. And I can guarantee you, when you get your feedback, they're not going to say this was a stupid idea. They're not going to say this was dumb. They're not going to say you didn't get this right. They're going to say things like, I don't really understand what you're saying with this. I'd love to know more. They're going to say things like, this was a good idea. I would like you to expand upon it. And even if you write about something completely irrelevant, all they're going to say is, I don't think this was necessary. That's it. It's not a judgment on your caliber. It's not a judgment on who you are. It's not a judgment on how intelligent you are. It's purely their feedback is there to guide you to get better papers. And I've met the creme de la creme in the academic world. Some are geniuses. Some are okay. They're really good at writing papers. And they're really good at writing papers because they weren't scared to hear what other people who've been in the industry longer told them what to do. And that's it. You're not going to know what to do until you let them tell you. You're not meant to know it. You've learned somewhere in your life that you are not worth being helped. You've learned somewhere in your life that you should have been perfect the moment you came out of the womb. You've learned somewhere that mistakes were punishable, that mistakes meant that you were flawed. And I know it because I was too. I was raised in a world where it wasn't done right the first time, you got punished. Things were broken, things were smashed, you were yelled at. If you got you couldn't even ask a question without being told that you were dumb, that you were thick, that you were stupid. You should have known that. No. Academia is for the curious, not for those who came in already pre-prepped. Some people may be more well-read, but they're only more well-read because they were curious in the first place. Don't be afraid to be curious. Be curious about how you can change your writing. Be curious about what an academic would like to say about your paper. When you submit your paper, it's not about being proud that you did it perfectly the first time. It's about going, I would love to hear your professional insight. See it as a novel being sent to an agent. Would you be excited that an agent was reading your book, or would you be terrified because they're going to tell you it's bad? Or would you be like, actually, I have an opportunity to publish my work and this agent is going to tell me what would be good? Imagine you're an aspiring novelist or aspiring writer. Now imagine your favourite author in your head and you met them in a coffee shop. It's Neil Gaiman. It's all the authors I'm thinking of are dead. A.S. Byatt, unfortunately, is no longer here. But think of like Neil Gaiman or in a past life, Terry Pratchett. Also, imagine your favourite author. And you met them in a coffee shop and they saw your manuscript and like, can I read that? I would love to give you my feedback. You have someone in the industry who's been around, who's written countless books, who's world famous, offering to read your manuscript for free and give you feedback. Would you take it? I can guarantee you would. And you wouldn't care if they think it was crap because you've got a world-class eyes on your paper, reading it for you and giving you feedback. That's how you should see handing in your essay. It's someone who's been in the industry long enough to tell you how to improve it, and that is it. It is not a marker on how intelligent you are. It is not a marker on how hard you worked. It is someone telling you from their professional experience how you can improve it, and there is always something that can be improved. No one is going to get a paper where it comes back saying, perfect, immaculate, you can't change anything. But the students who are getting first are the ones who listened earlier. The students who are getting first are the ones that listened to the professors and documented exactly. It's an art. Looking at papers and seeing how they construct things, how they construct arguments, where they put certain lines, it's an art. It's a craft. And these academics are there to help you learn the craft of it. See it as an opportunity purely to learn and be curious at what a professional thinks about your work. And nothing more than that. I unfortunately got that cruel professor who just said extremely poor essay. People don't realise how much that can destroy someone's lives. Cruel feedback can destroy people's lives. And I wish I went to the university about that and sent in a complaint. Not because it was cruel, but because it was unprofessional. I should have gone to the university office and been disgusted that I was paying money at my degree to get that when I was entitled to genuine, detailed feedback. You cannot like my essay. However, as a lecturer, you are in a position to tell me what to change. You are there to give your professional eyes on my paper and tell me how to improve. Giving me subjective, petty opinions is not helping me as a student. That's not why I'm in academia. And I should have been angry, not ashamed. And I chose shame. And look where it got me. I chose shame and self-hatred and punishment and self-flagellation for over a decade because of 3 little words. Extremely poor essay. When I should have been angry. And I should have taken it up and be like, excuse me, that's not your job. Your job isn't to pass judgment on who I am as a person. Your job is to tell me how to improve. So I say, submit your next paper, please. And see it as an opportunity. And unfortunately, because you have missed handing in papers, you haven't had enough opportunity to have the feedback that your peers have had. So don't compare yourself to your peers because they've heard the feedback and they've got more legs up in that situation. Don't compare yourself to your peers. Compare yourself to the person who didn't hand in the paper, which was you a few weeks ago. Hand in your next paper and see how professionals, what they will tell you, what they would do in your shoes. That's all it is. Everyone has their skill set. It doesn't mean you are not capable. You can't expect to get anywhere unless you let others in and help you grow. And just don't take it personally. I hope this helped you, Matilda, from listening here. Let me know when you submit your next paper. Please let us all know. And if anyone has ever had similar experiences, please feel free to leave a comment. This obviously exists on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but you can also send in a comment on my YouTube channel where the video is uploaded, and you can give Matilda your support. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you have any requests for your own questions that you'd like me to answer, there is a Google form in the description box down below that you can leave your questions there. You can remain anonymous or send your name. I hope this was helpful, and until next time, remain happy and healthy, and books save lives. So keep reading.